Okay, here's your latest State of the Celtics address. I am not the upset Celtics fan on this one. They're 11 and 3 now. They have the best offense in the league. The defense, we'll talk about the defense in this video. Let's start with Jayson Tatum. Yeah, this is the best season that he's had so far to start it out. Now, last night against OKC, he didn't have the best shooting game. He still had like 27 and 10 with like 3 steals and 3 blocks. I think Joe Mazzulla has placed an emphasis on Tatum and Jalen doing a little bit more off the ball, whether that is like setting down screens for guys and then in the midst of 2 or 3 dudes setting a screen, one of them can flash out to 3 or get an opportunity to cut to the basket. Both of them have set on-ball screens for Marcus Smart, not just Tatum, which of course was a big thing in the playoffs for them. They've also set screens for a little bit for Derek White, a little bit for Malcolm Brogdon. The main one is still Marcus Smart. There's also been slip screens out of those actions, and with that, sure, you're still going to get your Tatum sidestep threes, your Jalen simple pick and rolls, or making something happen in isolation. But the off-ball stuff has been real. Now, on top of this, their spacing has also been great. Now, unfortunately, Time Lord is out, and I think especially with the defense, we'll talk about that. But offensively, they've had one big pretty much most of the time. Whether it's Horford who's starting, and by the way, 31 minutes a game, shooting 43% from 3 on I think 5 threes a game. Last night against OKC, he was switching on to SGA some and everything. Horford just keeps going. It's crazy, man. But he's your big, and then between that, you got Tatum, you got Jalen, you got Marcus Smart, you have Brogdon, Derek White, Grant Williams. You're gonna get your Noah Vonleh and Luke Cornett and Blake Griffin at center minutes sprinkled in here and there, but the spacing is just great. I mean, I didn't mention Sam Hauser and that whole thing, who's been an awesome shooter for them. And even somebody like Smart, I mean, he can still take it off the dribble and keep a play moving, similar to Brogdon and Derek White. So there's just always options on offense. And then all of this combined with, again, Tatum and Jalen just doing more than just being stationary, which, that was a problem at times in the playoffs for them. It's just resulted in an offense that you kind of can't guard, especially because even if you do everything right, Tatum and Jalen can just make tough shots. Now, to speak on Tatum a little bit more, his handle improved even a little bit more from the strides he's taken this last couple seasons. I mean, he's busted out some spin moves. He's had some double crossovers. He's had half spins out of the corner where, in the Grizzlies game where Xavier Tillman thought he had him, and then Tatum in, one half spin was at the basket, basically. I remember there was one play against the Pistons coming around a screen where he had this in and out dribble that froze. I want to say it was Isaiah Stewart, but I could be wrong there, for half a second, which allowed him to get there. He's had moments coming around a screen where he's kept his dribble real low, and then whatever the next thing's got to be, whether it's a kick to the corner or keeping his defender behind him to finish at the rim, whatever it's got to be with Tatum, he's doing it, man. I remember in my way too early MVP video, I mentioned, well, Tatum's getting slightly more off the catch threes this year. Should I care about it? At this point, I do care about it. I think little plays where he'll relocate from even just the top of the key to the wing, and in that time frame, Luke Cornett will just set him a little screen to get a catch and shoot 3 from Marcus Smart. It's clear that they're trying to get more of that stuff in the offense. And as far as Tatum's shot profile, at this point, man, it's pretty much the dream. I mean, he's taking 10 threes a game. His improved handle, the improved spacing and all that, he's up to 9 free throws a game. He's shooting 85% at the rim. He's cut down on mid-range jumpers even more this season. Interestingly, though, his assist numbers have not shot up, which maybe you would have thought that was going to happen given how often he was handling the ball and running screens in the playoffs. Well, another thing with Mazzulla, to go along with that slightly more off-ball stuff for Tatum and Jalen, is I do think he wanted to take a little bit of pressure off of Tatum as a ball handler especially, and Marcus Smart has had his best passing season so far, and it's not as if Marcus is just breaking down defenders in one-on-ones or whatever, right? I mean, sure, he's had some lobs to Horford off of pick and rolls where it's okay, so it doesn't just have to be Tatum and Jalen initiating everything all the time. That's good. But a lot of it, again, I will come back to is they're having basically everybody screen for Marcus, and then it just creates offense for someone. Maybe it's not the guy rolling to the rim, but it might force a switch that's a little off balance, and then somebody can attack off of that, or, it's a swing to Brogdon. He'll take 2 dribbles in. It's a kick to Jalen in the corner or whatever. It's just everybody's moving. Their turnovers are also way down. That was another big problem for them in the playoffs. Remember, they're the second best not turning the ball over team so far, if that was proper English. Now, in the case of Jalen specifically, no, he didn't take some crazy leap with his ball handling or whatever, but I think it's fine. I think they have found the ideal in-between of how to feature him in the offense, which is we're going to give you the ball. We're not going to run a million pick and rolls for you because sometimes the handle can be a bit shaky. but Jalen's handle is certainly good enough to where like he can handle ISOs, he can handle some screens, he can handle coming around off-ball actions, as I keep saying, from the corner or whatever. It's working for him. I mean, Jalen, he's at 25 points a game on 58 true shooting, so it's a good time. The other thing is that they've been shooting kind of outrageously from three. Like I mentioned, Horford, he's at like 43%. He's at 45% on 5 a game. That is outrageous. Sam Hauser, I think, has not missed a 3 all season. Grant Williams is at 49% from 3, and I don't know if he's missed a corner 3 all season. Derek White's at 40% from outside. Like, some of these numbers are going to dip down. But with the amount of space that's on the floor, like, I imagine they're going to continue to be, the leading 3-point attempt team in the NBA. Now, when Time Lord comes back, like, will it be him and Al out there together? Which, yeah, the shooting's going to dip down, but you think you got more juice with screen setting, and obviously Rob is a lob threat. We'll see, and he's a good passer if they tap into that. Let's talk about the defense. So the loss of Rob is definitely felt on this side of the floor right now. They're just smaller. Now the schemes are similar. It's if an action involves 2 guards or 2 wings, 1 guard, 1 wing, typically it's going to be a switch. Horford has had a mix of drop and switching. Last night against OKC, they actually had him, especially in the second half from what I remember, on like Lou Dort a lot of the time. And, sometimes he was switching on to SGA. And I think Al is just going to continue to do his job and do it well enough. I think what's happening, though, is, for lack of a better term, I think sometimes the defense has just been a little softer than last year. Like, there was one meltdown they had against the Bulls where there was one play I remember, it really sticks out, where Levine got a switch onto Sam Hauser with, like, no real trouble, which even that was a challenge to do against the Celtics last playoffs. Remember when teams would try to attack Peyton Pritchard in the few minutes he would have, right? So they get the switch easy, Levine onto Hauser. Then he attacks him off the bounce, and there's, like, no help. And it's just like, wait, what's going on? Against the Knicks, they had some plays where there were, like, miscommunications where Brunson would be bringing it up, and both Jalen and Smart thought that the other one had him, so then he's driving, and then it's a swing to an RJ Barrett open 3. Against the Nuggets, like, KCP had 5 threes, and, like, a couple of them they just didn't find him in transition. One, Grant overhelps when Murray is in the post. Another was when Jalen overhelped when Murray had the ball at the top of the key, but it wasn't like a drive and kick situation. Now, granted, if KCP doesn't make these threes, and I guess I'm not saying this, but it didn't look great. Also in that Nuggets game, they had Grant guarding Jokic sometimes, and it was like him dropping on Murray-Jokic screens, which allowed Jokic to get like some shots at the free throw line, which I think they were betting on him not making, and that's going to happen. Jokic is just going to be Jokic. To go back to that Knicks game, Brunson had some plays where even if it was a switch, and let's say he even had like Tatum on him, it seemed like he was able to just flow into like elbow jumpers or pull-ups or whatever kind of easily. Like, I don't know. I would love to just be like, well, the reason their defense is worse is because they're adjusting their scheme drastically, which I guess in some ways that's happening because Time Lord isn't playing. But I just think sometimes it's like, the on-ball defense could have been a little better there. You could have been a little more aggressive on that switch. That closeout could have been a little better. Why was there a miscommunication? Why did you fall for a backdoor cut, which happened against OKC a few times last night? Even against the Thunder, like, their defense in the first half was kind of bad. And then in the second half, they started gambling in passing lanes a little more, got steals, and they came back, won the game, woohoo. But I don't know. To attempt to be positive about the defense, like if I compare it to last year to this year, the shots they're giving up are pretty similar. Like, they're still towards the top of the league and not allowing a lot of shots at the rim. They're allowing a lot of mid-rangers, although this year teams are shooting much better on mid-rangers than last year, which maybe that's a sign of they're getting into those like pull-ups a little easier, whereas last year it was more like, oh my god, I can't get an ounce of daylight because they're switching everything, and if I try to drive, Time Lord's waiting for me, so I guess I'm going to take this like awkward 14-footer. I don't know, it's been a whirlwind of a 14 games, man. It's like they've got the best offense in the league. Their defense so far has been worse. They've got a new coach. They're 11-3, and they've got an MVP candidate. It's like, I do feel good about it overall. But when I lift up the hood and check out the specific details, I am a little like, so how concerned should I be with this defense? I don't know. But right now, it's good overall.